This video contains gratuitous use of profanity and uncomfortable pauses to compensate for lack of professionalism and original thought. Viewer discretion advised.
Live from 1428 Elm Street, we bring you the Nerdy Manroom Show with your host, Hassel and Monster. Monster, kick it off and give our sponsor a little love.
Yeah, well, before we get started into the show too deep, we want to make sure we thank our sponsor, The Zone Collectibles. They have a physical store located in Tifton, Georgia that you can visit, but also you can find them on the interwebs at thezonecollectibles@gmail.com and on Facebook at The Zone Collectibles. Visit them for all your nerdy needs, from comics to Legos to trading cards, toys, games, and supplies, and much, much more. We do want to mention that actually our sponsor, Kevin from the Zone Collectibles, is actually going to join us next week, as we're going to be talking about all things What If, and we'll explain that a little bit more at the end of the episode. But for now, we've got a ton of news to get through before we can get to our main topic, so I think we'll probably slide right on into that and try and make our way through it.
Man, how about them dogs? That's all I can say. How about them?
Yeah, sports news. Very first thing up, Georgia Bulldogs, national champions. And I am not a college sports fan. I will tell you, I watch very little college sports. I usually catch the March Madness just to see how I like watching people's brackets fall apart more than I actually like watching the games, to be perfectly honest. But I don't really catch much of college ball, but I know you do. And Bulldogs pulled it out.
It's been a long drought. 41 years. That championship was starting to be middle-aged, but Kirby Smart and his boys, they pulled it off. Hats off to Bama. I mean, you can't ever, just disparage what they do. They're a great program. Nick Saban's a hell of a coach, and as long as he's on that side of the field, you got to worry, no matter how great your team are.
Yeah. What's amazing to me is, so I am in a completely different state, even though I am from Georgia like you are, but going to work this week, and I went to one of the sites, and it was on Tuesday, so everybody was talking about the game. The most interesting thing is, if you're not from the state that the team is in, all you hear about is how they were either happy that Alabama got beat or upset that Alabama didn't win, but nobody was saying they were happy or upset that Georgia won. They really didn't care. It was all about Alabama and their positioning.
Unfortunately, they get the spotlight even when they're, in the wrong circumstances, but I mean, it was special for us. Vince Dooley, the coach of the 1980 Bulldogs that won the championship, he was there, and it was a special moment on the field with him and Kirby. That's just two heirs there. Then it's going to be an iconic photo. That's what it's going to be. But we're pretty excited about it, and I mean, what was it, 33-18? And I mean, all the touchdowns in the fourth quarter were scored by freshmen. So you can say what you want to about, your best player has been out, but we have freshmen on the field in the fourth quarter. So, I'm sure we'll see them again next year, without a doubt. So, hopefully this is the start of many years to come where we're a little more dominant.
Well, hopefully so. We'll see. But, while we're on sports, let's jump over to WWE for a minute. They have started this year off the same way. They spent most of 2021 firing everybody in sight. When you first sent me a news story on it, the first thing we saw was William Regal was released, which was a huge shock because he's been the NXT guy for 10 years now or so. I mean, it's got to be close to that.
He has pretty well scouted their talent. He started their UK division altogether. He got that up off the ground and running for them. All the good talent that they've scooped up in probably the last 10 years, not just NXT, but like getting AJ Styles over there, things of this nature, Kevin Owens, all these guys. He scouted them and, got in, Paul Levesque's ear, and that's how they got there. If AEW does not put the bank on the line to pull this guy in, because what they lack sorely is trainers.
That's where I was going to go exactly, because I was, as a matter of fact, I think it might have been Jim Cornette's podcast I was listening to as I was working some reports today, and it was, his point was, it's like the WWE just looks over across the fence and says, "Oh, this is what AEW is lacking. Fire all these people so they can hire them," because you know, his comment, they needed trainers, they needed more bookers and producers, and that's pretty much what you got out of WWE's firings this time.
With the exception of Samoa Joe, I mean, you really didn't release any talent that they need.
Yeah, but you released several that can do some training.
Yeah, you know, between Road Dogg and Scott Armstrong, I mean, those are both two outstanding, you know, wells of knowledge.
Well, one of the ones that was released, it was a wrestler on NXT and then had been off air for a while. But Timothy Thatcher is actually a highly trained martial artist and wrestler, and he was actually the reason he came off TV is he was going behind the scenes and doing all the training of all the new talent. So all the talent that you see coming up right now in NXT, he was starting to teach them, and then they fired him too.
So is Sean the only one that's bulletproof there? I mean,
and that's probably pretty much just because of the name value, right? You can't.
I would assume.
It doesn't matter what Nick Khan wants. Even old man Vince is not going to let you walk in there and fire HBK because the amount of money he draws in just from a name value just to pop up on screen, he's not going to let him go. And honestly, Samoa Joe, as much as I hated to see him go, and you said he was the only real talent released, you had to see it coming because what's he really done for the company in the last 5 years? I mean, he was a great announcer, but you were wasting his talent anywhere else because they weren't going to clear him to wrestle. And then when they did one time, he got hurt again immediately. So,
well, they said that it wasn't so much that he was hurt before or after, that he come in there just to get the belt off Karrion Kross because apparently something, you know, I know he was moving to the main roster, but you know something happened and they had to get the belt off of him, and so he pretty much just come in to be somebody believable to get the belt off of him. And then they went their different direction. So, I mean, I don't know if it was injury before or after, honestly.
I don't know if he was ever cleared back from all, because he had a series of concussions, and that's what kept him from being cleared. And I don't know that he ever really was, other than the fact they said, well, we got to do something, and there's nobody else here to get that belt off Kross. So clear him long enough to get the belt, then we'll say, okay, drop the belt immediately and say you're injured.
So there's a story. Just how shitty a company is that?
And that's the other thing, right? He's going behind the scenes and training all these guys. He was the one showing up every week at the training performance center and training all of them, from what I understand. Him and Timothy Thatcher, and you know, you got Road Dogg and Scott Armstrong were doing most of the producing, but that wealth of knowledge there just to get people over, and they just threw it right out the door.
It's baffling.
And there were more names that they released that I didn't even realize they had, or that I don't know who they even are.
Name, Spicoli or Gabe something. I can't pronounce his last name.
Gabe Spicoli, I think, was one of them. Raja Singh was on there.
They hyped pretty good, as you know, that he would be a good addition, you know, as far as knowing how to book.
Yeah, so I mean, it's amazing to see what they're doing and what they're trying to do. It almost felt like it was less firing because of talent or budget reasons, and more firing and say, okay, let's just clear out everybody who was here for Triple H and the NXT, and that way we can say, hey, we've got all his stuff, so that experiment's over.
They've had record profits for the last 2 years. They cannot blame it on budgeting at any point. Every one of these firings, let's face it, have been bullshit when it comes to budgeting. I mean, they're trimming the fat, but why? I mean, are they just like, you know, saying, well, you know what, we're the most dominant force there is in pro wrestling in the United States. So no one's going to oppose us right now. If we need to reboot, let's reboot. And it's almost like that's what they're trying, maybe. Like they're just saying, you know what, we'll do it, rebuild it the way we want to do it.
That may be. And it's kind of weird, too, that all this is falling at the same time that they're facing a major lawsuit from MLW and other independent wrestling companies that are trying to join in with that too, saying that they were monopolizing it and keeping them off TV by going to the TV station and saying, look, if you hire them, you won't ever work with us again. And that came out last week that they were in the middle of that lawsuit, and that could get very ugly very quickly. Now, I think that lawsuit held more water 2 years ago before AEW, and they were the only thing out there. Now you got a little bit of competition, so they might have a little bit of an argument back, but still, that's going to be interesting.
It's not the 80s anymore. Vince does have to realize the tactics he used, you know, to keep WCW out of places, like, you know, saying, hey, if you let them in your venue, we're not going to come back to the Garden or wherever. Or, you know, if you play them on your station, we won't allow our programming there. Well, first of all, your program is free on, you know, streaming services. So, I mean,
yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where they go, but not to spend too much time on them. We can jump to our next bit of news from the sports, and Topps Trading Cards, leading trading card company for the last 70 years, has sold to Fanatics. And this one kind of surprised me because I don't really know a ton about Fanatics other than they're involved in other stuff besides just cards. But I don't know what kind of.
Primarily, what I know them from is sports apparel.
Yeah,
They're a site I buy hats and the shirts off of a great deal.
I'm hugely surprised that Topps sold to them, especially considering the whole trading card industry. Yeah, kind of bottomed out in the last 5 to 10 years ago, but now it's come back in the last couple of years, especially during this time of pandemic and people being at home. It's exploded. I mean, the value on all those cards has jumped up greatly. They're selling more, but they ended up selling out, and they don't do just sports trading cards. Also, they dabbled in, just like Fleer and Upper Deck and others, they've dabbled in doing comic book cards, wrestling cards, other things as well. But it's just kind of crazy that they sold it right now.
I didn't realize that Topps was actually the owner of WizKids back when Hero Clips was out. I mean, because for some reason I was something later on was that I thought that they were the owners of WizKids, and I got to looking at it, and it was Topps, and I was like, wow, okay.
Yeah, they started that off. I think they sold it off to.
Well, they actually went out of business in 2009 for a handful of years. And NECA bought them. They bought the rights from.
That's what I was trying to think of, NECA.
From who was a subsidiary of Topps, that they bought them off of them.
Yeah, well, and since you brought up NECA and some of that stuff, why don't we jump ahead to our toy news? Because, as I said, we've got a lot to cover this week, so not to fly through them. But biggest news in toy land right now, though, is that New York International Toy Fair for 2022 has been canceled again. This is the second time that it's been canceled. And surprisingly, out of a 118-year legacy, which I didn't even realize it was that old. It started in 1903, and it's, they had to cancel 2021. They held 2020. Pandemic hit right after. 2021 was canceled, and this year they were trying their hardest to say they weren't going to cancel, even though their biggest retailers and vendors pulled out about a week ago. The announcement for the actual cancellation wasn't until like 2 days ago.
Yeah, they stalled for a little while, and I'm not sure why. I mean, it ain't like all of a sudden you can pull a last Hail Mary and say, hey, surprise, we're going to have it.
They tried to do it, from what I understand, because there was, out of all the participants, now they lost their big companies, Walmart, Target, Amazon, Hasbro, Mattel, Jazzwares. All these huge companies that go there were pulling out, but there was like close to 700 independent small retailers that were trying to get there, like Ramen Toys, Super 7 being in that number, even though they're a little bit bigger now, they were still trying to show up and all. But once the retailers pulled out, and then the biggest companies pulled out, they're like, well, we got to balance the safety concerns and the amount of revenue we're going to lose to hold the entire show just for these smaller companies. And they wanted to still have it to help those small ones, but they just could not afford it at that point.
Well, and then the fans that would have went to that expecting what they had prior, even knowing they're not going to be there, you still go into it expecting it. And then you get these lower tiers, and you're going to be, it's no different than the Rancor tiers. You get a sour taste in your mouth, and then you don't come back next year.
Well, and I watch a lot of reviewers too, and a lot of those that actually go to the toy fair to see the vendors and stuff that have good relationships with them. For instance, Fushcast, several others. They were saying they had their spots reserved, but even they were starting to question if they were going to go at this point, because it is in New York, which is a hotbed for the disease right now. So they're like, and then all the big companies pulled out. It's like, yeah, we'd like to see these smaller companies too, but even they were saying on their podcast stuff, we're probably not going to make it this year. So at that point, when you've got 700 small ones, you want to help them, but you're not going to get participants there either for that.
And you love to see the small guy get some love and get a showcase that he wouldn't have got before, but at the same time, is it really going to do anything?
And everybody else has had success over the last 2 years. I'm surprised they haven't just started saying, hey, we're just going to start doing online reveals and stuff. Hasbro has their PulseCon, and they had it like almost twice last year, I believe, to put new products and stuff out there. And it's cheaper and easier for them to do that and produce it from their little studio in their offices and broadcast it.
Well, we'll tune in. They know we will.
Yeah.
I mean, in the world, most of the world has become very antisocial. If you can pick up your phone and just kind of watch a podcast or watch a streaming of something, most people are going to do that.
We're antisocial physically. We're social media adept, though. Everybody's on social media to talk about. But let's
even
talk
us.
let's talk about some of the smaller companies that were going to be there, though, and we'll hit on some of the big ones too. But Mezco announced earlier this week, and I guess I should take a moment and also preface that we put together our notes and news as we're getting ready for the shows, and normally we had the chance to do this on Tuesdays. Unfortunately, this week, due to circumstances beyond our control, mostly meaning work, we had to reschedule for Thursday. So some of this news is going to be a little dated, and some of it we might have missed a few things. We'll try and pick them up next week. And then some of this you'll see later that were premieres that already happened, and we're kind of telling you afterwards. But sorry, life happened, unfortunately. this
Occasionally we don't get the scoop.
Yeah, and I bring it up on this one because Mezco announced for January 12th they were having a 1/12 day because they do most of their stuff in the 1/12 scale. Now, when I saw that, there was no official statements of what that entailed, and to be honest, even though I checked again on 1/12 and today on 1/13, I still saw nothing of what was revealed and what was coming out unless they scrapped that because they were one of the ones that were on the fence about going to Toy Fair, so maybe they decided, let's redo that on another day, or I just completely missed it, so I will look into it more.
Or did they pull a Tony Khan and say, hey, we're going to have a big surprise on Dynamite tonight, and then nothing happens?
Yeah, and we'll look into it some more and see what else comes of it, but I have not seen any news about what that entails so far. But that was slated for yesterday as we're recording on the 13th, but unfortunately we haven't gotten any extra news out of there. Super 7, though, revealed earlier in the week. Actually, and I think this might have been in the end of last week, but their Simpsons Ultimates Wave 2 is up for pre-order now until February 4th. Supposed to release in fall. Your lineup is Bartman, Duffman, Krusty the Clown, and I have no idea who this last one is, but Hank Scorpio. I don't remember what episode that's from, or it's some one-off, and I know they're digging into those. It's kind of odd that they're not getting more. It's odd that they're not getting more main characters at this point, but they're continuing to push the line. And I don't know if that's because the first one didn't sell, and they're like, yeah, let's pick some secondary ones here to see if we do sell anymore, if we're going to continue doing this, or if it's just they were told, hey, spread these out for us.
He is
we're
the
have this
evil
for a
genius
while.
and owner of Globex Corporation, as one of the most popular and favorite Simpsons one-only people.
Yeah,
he was on You Only Move Twice.
Wow, I don't know that one. And again, as much as I love to watch The Simpsons, I don't need figures of The Simpsons. I don't plan on collecting any, but I wanted to make sure we let our listeners know that if you are interested in those, they are for pre-sale now, and you have until February 4th. So
now they do a Brett the Hitman hard out for shits and giggles. I may purchase, but I feel like the Super 7 is wasting a lot of time, effort, and resources in this line.
I don't know. They've been picking up a lot more people as far as designers and producers and stuff to work for them. So maybe they're spreading the love and getting, because I've seen job postings for them, but I don't live in California, so I'm not planning to move there, so I'm not looking at that. But
always relocate, monster.
I've done that quite a few times. So for a while, I'm not moving all this stuff back here. It can stay where it's at. I don't blame you. Another small company that really sent some pre-orders up this week. Premium DNA, which is this the first time I've actually heard of them, is releasing a Battletoads wave that's up for pre-order now. They're set to release sometime second quarter, so they've got to be a small company and expecting just to do a certain amount, and they've got to be somewhere along the lines of the production already for it to be coming in the second quarter of this year. But it's kind of the prices are a little bit hard to nail down because it is I think it's an 8-figure assortment. But they're different sizes, so that they range in prices from their sizes, like the basic 5 or 6 inch figures, depending on their scale, are like $45 to $59. And then you've got some big ones, where the largest one being one called General Slaughter. He's like a 12-inch figure, and he's about $150. So
I'm saying them that they look good. I mean, I don't know.
They do.
What kind of fan base Battletoads has anymore now that it's not 1989, but
and I still
or at least enough for those kind of figures. I mean,
and I still like them, and I recognized the bad guys when I saw them. But I'm gonna be honest with you, I couldn't pick out. And I recognized Battletoads, but I couldn't pick out which one was which if you asked me and held a gun to my head. But the lineup for this wave is Zitz and Rash, which are both Battletoads. Porka Pig, which is one of the enemies, Rat Bones, and then General Vermin, who is an oversized. I think he's like a 9-inch figure, and General Slaughter is a 12-inch. So that's two of the major bosses. The Rat Bones is the smallest out of the villain ones. I think he's one that's like 45. I think he's like 4.5, 5 inches, and he has a lot of accessories, but he is literally bones. So there's not a lot of meat on this figure.
It was a fun little play back in the day, but I mean, let's be honest. The most memorable thing of it is it had Double Dragon's sound effects.
Yeah.
That was
and it's not, as far as I know, it doesn't have a huge fan base, but hopefully they have enough to help them out. Because this company, small company, they made a good run, but that's how Super 7 started. So maybe we'll see more from them.
Yeah.
But switching gears to one of the larger companies, we can hit on Hasbro, and they're unfortunately their CEO Brian Goldner passed away last October, and they've had a interim CEO Rich Stoddard, who's been with the company for a long time, and he's been independent director since like 2014. He's going to be moving to the chairman of the board on February 25th, and will be replaced with a new CEO of Chris Cox.
Giggity.
Has the best name ever.
If he doesn't do porn after his career at Hasbro, he's missing out.
And he's been with them for a little while too. From what I looked into, he was the president and chief operating officer for their Wizards of the Coast digital and gaming platform since 2016. He'll be taking over as CEO on February 25th, and he will be joined by Eric Nyman as the Hasbro president and chief operating officer for all brands. Now, he's been with them for 18 years and been in various roles and chief officers for multiple individual brands, but now he's taking over for the entire company along with Chris Cox.
And that was why I was checking on WizKids earlier, because for some reason I had thought Wizards of the Coast had purchased WizKids.
I did too for a while.
And they may have had something to do with when WizKids did try to do that digital game, the online version of the HeroClix. Maybe they helped with that. I remember them having ties at some point, I thought, but
yeah, I think there was something to it, but I don't know the whole story. But while we're in Hasbro, we can kick over to some of their properties, and some of these are not Hasbro toys individually. They're from third parties, but they are properties that Hasbro owns. So that Transformers being the big one, and I'm going to say up front that there's probably going to be another episode with a longer discussion on some of this, so I won't beat a dead horse. But the third-party figures that are coming out, and Hasbro and Takara have announced a few masterpiece figures that are coming from Takara, which all of Hasbro's masterpieces are Takara masterpieces. They just rebrand them for U.S. titles, but I don't know that they can compete with these third-party ones, whether look or in price. But yeah, we'll run through some of these. Fans Toys has released a slew of them this week for pre-order. They've got, and I'm going to give the number and the name of the figure, but they have FT25 Outrider, which is their version of Trailbreaker. All of these are up for pre-order now, so I won't repeat that every time. But this one's set to release in September, and it's a $189 price tag. Nice looking piece, but honestly, I've already got one myself. This is an X-Transbot, so I probably won't be swapping out. But I mean, the other funny thing about this, as we go through these, every one of these Fans Toys, when I'm telling you about, are actually already pre-sold out at all vendors.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and it's amazing considering Fans Toys prices, because that, just picking on that one we just talked about there, Trailbreaker, $189. The X-Transbot version I got was $120.
I gotta be honest, I'm a big fan of the X-Transbots. I mean, I got the Cup and I've got Megatron, both of those. And I want to say the last Galvatron I bought maybe be as X-Transbots. You can't beat them quality-wise.
No, and Fans Toys quality, I would say, because I have some of both, is just as good. Now, there's sometimes their paint apps are a little bit better, but I thought they were starting to price themselves out of the market, and this is probably part of the larger discussion, but they're really not. Because you see that they're already sold out. But other ones they've got listed, they have FT52 Aussie, which is their version of Outback. He's also coming out in September. He's $119. You've got FT49 Phantasm, which is their version of Mirage. He's coming out in December, and he's at $159. And I actually have a Mirage from Transform Element that was $99. The quality is just as good, but again, somehow at this extra bit of pricing, they're still selling them out. FT48 Jive, which is their version of Jazz, he's coming out in December as well at a $159 price tag.
That one actually looks really good too.
Yes, and the only one that can compete with that is the Make Toys Jazz, I believe, but I'm not sure. And they just did a re-release of that one last year, but I'm not sure what they're even doing, if they're even releasing anything else, or if they're just, hey, every now and then they were re-releasing an old one they had, because I don't know, I don't see anything new from them half the time. And then the last one is FT26 Hitch, which is their version of Hoist. Another December release, and he's a little bit more. He's at $189, but he's a slightly bigger bot than the last couple anyway, so that kind of makes sense. But while we're on that version of masterpieces, and this is where I say there's a bigger discussion here, but Takara revealed their second train combiner piece, and I'm going to probably butcher this name because this was only Japanese characters, and I really can't pronounce half of his name, but Getsui, I believe is the name, is slated for a September release. When I first got the note, I didn't see the pre-order, but the pre-order went up last night. It is a $209 figure.
Wow.
And it's the second combiner piece to the riding train set. Their first one is set to come out in June, and it was $229 because it's the chest piece, so it has some additional parts that hook to it. But man, I'm telling you, the look of it, it's very hollow when it's in robot mode. There's a lot of kibble on it in both train and combiner piece mode. It doesn't look very sturdy. It looks very weak.
Yeah, and for 200 bones, I mean, you got to figure you got 2 arms, 2 legs, a chest, a head. I mean, you're running into some cash real quick.
One of the other companies out there, which is Moon Studios, which is, we say they're a new third-party company, but their design for their train combiner that they're doing came from Zeta Toys, which has done has a proven track record with combiners. They've done a Superior, which I have a version of. It's very sturdy, very solid.
Good looking bot too.
Yeah, and they've got their trains already coming out. Their first 2 have already dropped. I'm waiting on to arrive in the mail now, and they were $109 a piece. And in some reviews I've seen of them, these 2 are just the legs, and they're the same size as the MP44 Optimus. This thing's going to be huge when you combine it.
But the thing is, I mean, when you get those in there, obviously from overseas, and the directions are in Japanese, and you're trying to decipher how to, because I'm going to be honest, their pictures are shit. I was sitting there Tuesday night, with my star screen trying to figure out how to change him from jet to robot. I thought it'd be so simple. I thought it'd be so simple.
No, sir.
And I'm sitting there for like 20 minutes, like trying to be the dad that's putting shit together without the instructions. And then finally I just say, F it, go to YouTube. And then I just keep rewinding little bits and pieces over here and there till
I do the same.
I finally got him to where I wanted him.
I do the same with new ones, but it's amazing what Takara is charging for those things, and their train was they're all plastic, like the combiner ones I've ordered from Moon Studios or Zeta, whatever you want to call them now. And I'm not sure if they sold their plans to Moon Studios and it's a new company, or if it's people that left Zeta and went over and started because they got in trouble for making stuff under that name. So, but when you got the figure in your hand, the Moon Studios ones have die cast pieces as well to make them sturdier. And they're very solid looking. There's not a lot of extra stuff just hanging off of them like you see on the Takara ones. I don't know how Takara is still competing other than the fact
for the most part, I will say Starscream felt very sturdy, other than the fact his wings are absolute shit. Like you fold a piece back and tuck some things in there, and then it's supposed to snap together. But even if it snaps perfectly the way it's supposed to,
it still feels loose.
Well, you still can see, remnants of what's in there, but mine, neither wing snaps firmly. And luckily it's on the back side. So, I mean, once it goes in the showcase, I'm not going to pull him back out and turn him around to show him, faulty parts to people, but I know it's there and it bothers the hell out of me. And if I hadn't got him at such a great deal, I'd much rather have the third party one. But, I got him on such a great deal. It's, you couldn't afford not to.
Yeah. And I've got several Takara pieces myself. You can see some of them behind us, but not all of them are bad. Like their hound is, even though it's all plastic, it's really well. It's solid. There's no extra kibble on it. It's just a solid figure once you get it in figure mode. But these trains do not look like they're up to the same standards what the third parties put now, which is why I say we've probably got a longer conversation there for another episode, so I won't spend too much more time.
Oh yeah, we definitely have to have a Transformers episode fairly soon.
Yeah, we're gonna have to discuss that, especially since I've got like 5 masterpieces coming in the mail this week from third party.
You might have an unveiling at the same time.
Yeah. While we're on Hasbro, though, we do have a Transformers adjacent line, G.I. Joe. They've got some new stuff coming out. We've got some rumored listings for their classified line, and we actually got a picture of the first one, the Tiger Force Duke, which is a Target exclusive, obviously. It's same Duke we've had. They just repainted him in Tiger Force colors. The only thing about it is it's listed as it's coming with a vehicle, and it's got a little bit higher price tag. So I don't think it's going to be like the Ram cycle like with Breaker, but I don't know what the vehicle is. There's been nothing said about what it is other than
just speculatory. What do you think it's going to be, and what do you wish it was going to be?
I wish it was going to be the Tiger Force, either the Tiger Force helicopter that they had, or the plane that they had, the little or the VTOL plane where you could flip the wings and it really straight up. But at the price point, and it's about the same price point as a Breaker and a Ram cycle, so I'm hoping they're not just repainting the Ram cycle in Tiger Force colors and saying, "Here you go." Or it may even be a weapons platform. We don't know, but there's nothing right now enticing me to buy another Duke. I mean, I love the Tiger Force stuff, especially the vehicles, but I'm not buying another Duke in the same deco just with a new, or the same scope with a new deco.
Depending on what he comes with, I may or may not get him. It just will depend on what he comes with. I mean, I would love to see it come because, I mean, they had a lot of really cool Tiger Force vehicles, and let's face it, they were all just repaints. But like there was this one boat they done with like the two motors on the back. That was just like I loved it as a kid.
Oh, I forgot about that. Maybe that is what it is because that's actually
and he came with that because that would be within reason. I would think I would buy it, but I got a feeling it's going to be the Tiger Claw, which was nothing more than a damn little 4-wheeler painted up.
Yeah,
and I almost guarantee you that's what it's going to be.
It might be, and the boat does make sense though because that is mostly hollow. Offering, so it's not like it's a ton of plastic to put it in there for that same price range. But they did have some more rumors. Now that's the only one we've seen a picture of at this point. Well, until I get to some later ones, I think they actually announced those later. But we do have rumors of a troop builder pack that's coming out. No details on where it's going to be or what it is. However, the general consensus is it's probably going to be the first Joe troop builder. So it's probably grunts and green shirts, and we're thinking it's probably a Hasbro Pulse exclusive because that's kind of where they do that stuff for like the Hydra soldiers, AIM soldiers, clone troopers. Now, however, they have seen success in selling troop builders for Cobra and Target for the Cobra officers and the Vipers and everything else. So maybe that's where it goes. But the general consensus
some pictures
out
there's a G.I. Joe Facebook page, classified Facebook page I follow on Facebook, and they had like what they were calling a troop builder set. Now I don't know if it's leaked images or if it's just something somebody's made, but they favored a lot like Flint, but they had red berets and a little bit different, like a chest vest, so to speak. And it was kind of put out there like maybe that was what the troop builder was going to be. Like some of them had different hair color, but you could tell it was definitely like Flint's mold.
Yeah, and that may be, when I gathered up the notes for this, it was, all this was rumor and conjecture at that point, and especially the next one. I haven't figured out what this next one is yet to save my life, but they've got 2-packs coming out, and they're animal 2-packs, which I'm not sure why G.I. Joe has been so big on the animals this past year with Spirit and Freedom, and Crocmaster and Fiona is one of these 2-packs that's already been solicited, and it's everywhere. So we're assuming this one is, but it just says figure and pet Ariel. I have no idea what Ariel would be for pet. The only other person I can even think of with a pet at this point in time is Shipwreck with Polly, and that's going to be a single pack figure. Spirit and Freedom was. Yeah. Because Polly's smaller than Freedom.
Well, Ariel would lead you to believe it's something seaworthy, I would suppose. But
that's where I was thinking. But I'm trying to think of who has a sea animal besides Crocmaster.
What do they give us? Wetsuit with a fucking dolphin.
I would still buy it for wetsuit, but I care less about a dolphin. But that could be. I actually thought about, is that a dolphin at first? Because it is Ariel, and I'm thinking Little Mermaid. But at the same time, who has a dolphin? Nobody.
No one. And it doesn't get much more feminine sounding than Ariel. So, I mean,
yeah.
Where do they go with this? Well, I mean, time will tell, but I mean, it's.
Yeah. And then the last bit of G.I. Joe official news we had was that there's a 6-inch value figure coming. And I don't know why they called it a 6-inch value figure on what I saw it on, because at first everybody was saying, oh, this is going to be a weapons pack or something for the classified, because it's priced at $4.99 on the retailer sites. They're finding it, and they're saying it's 6-inch, but it's actually since been revealed it's actually 4-inch limited articulation figures. They've got like 5 or 6 points of articulation. It's more for the kids. It's a Snake Eyes, a Baroness, and a Destro, and that's what that is. But they're not even 6-inch. These look like come
straight from the Dollar Tree.
That's exactly what they look like. And I don't know why they called it 6-inch, though, because they're not 6 inches. That's what got me. I was like,
these are DS award-winning figures from the Dollar Tree that you get the nephew you don't care for, but you have to go to his birthday party. They say, you know what, you little son of a gun? I got you right here, bro.
Oh, man. But while we're on G.I. Joe, let's jump to an adjacent property. While this is not official from Hasbro, they are not G.I. Joe, but they fit in so well with them. The Valaverse has actually got a new wave of Action Force figures up for pre-order on Big Bad Toy Store. I wasn't going to go through all of them because they're not named characters. They just make up names for them. They kind of fit.
Really matter, let's be honest.
I picked up 2 of them for note. The one that truly matters is the second version of Sergeant Slaughter, who's, looks amazing because he's back in the tank top. It's not with the jacket and all on. He looks really good, and I've thought about getting him just to fit him in. They are a hair bit taller. They're like a half an inch taller than your others, but for Sergeant, I'm fine with him being taller than the others.
Dude, when I seen him, I was just like, at ease, maggot. I mean, if he's bigger, it's great because he was always larger than life than the rest
Right.
of the anyway.
And I think he's like half an inch taller from what I saw in comparisons to the first release when they were comparing them in size on reviews that I was watching.
It makes me want to buy a third Cobra bat because one, I've got to have my MOC bat. Then I was going to have my loose one to pose.
You need a battle damage one now for him to defeat.
I need a battle damage one that, Sergeant Slaughter standing with his foot on the chest, holding the head, and some of those, iconic, when he shows up to whoop everybody's ass in the Shape episode.
So, and I know you talked about pre-ordering this one, but did he have, because I know the biggest thing the jacketed version looked a little too slim for me, which is why I didn't get him. This one looks a little more muscular because he's wearing the tank top, but the jacketed one had the baton he uses, like the little training baton. I didn't see that with this one. Is it in there?
You know what? I didn't think to look. You kind of got me there. I didn't think to look. One way or the other.
I know he's got a few guns. He's got his revolver again that he had in the first release figure, and he's got the grenade launcher and stuff, which is cool looking. But I just didn't remember seeing the baton. That's the only thing I'd be like, man, I really want that for him. But
yeah, because that's a must for Sergeant Slaughter. You got to have that.
The only other figure out of these that I picked up on as something of note was there's an exclusive Night Ops Steel Brigade figure. It's a Big Bad Toy Store exclusive. I was just going to mention it because it is exclusive to them, because you can buy the rest of these on other retailers as well. But these are all set to come out in March of this year, and they're $31.99 each. So not a bad price, especially if you're trying to fit them into your G.I. Joe set, because they work well if you just need troop builders that you can easily get, because you can pre-order these a lot easier sometimes than you can some of the G.I. Joe classified at this point.
And they're generic enough looking for the other ones. Some of them do really cool. I hate to say generic looking, but they're not, straight knockoffs, I guess, so to speak. So to where if you just wanted them if you're one of those people that build the dioramas and you wanted an extra soldier in there, it looked cool because they got one like a little gold arm that almost looked like the cat off of Silverhawks. Commander Stargazer. He kind of looked like him, like he had like the sleeves that kind of went down the hair, and he had a little gold arm, like maybe he had lost his arm. And that's kind of neat.
They all look neat. I have no attachment to them, so I wasn't going to buy any other than maybe Sarge, just because I would like to get him in my G.I. Joe display. But
no, I'm at a point in my collecting to where it has to have some sentimental value or just be absolutely kick-ass for me to buy.
Same here. And, since you brought that up, the next item on our news list was a Star Wars Black Series. It's a Boba Fett prototype armor. It's an Amazon exclusive. And it's only Amazon exclusive because that's the only place they're selling it. And it's up for pre-order now for a December release date, which is insane considering it's a whole year away. I knew they just threw it up right now because they're like, Boba Fett's on TV, so let's...
What's so damn exclusive about it? I have this figure literally hanging on a wall.
And I didn't realize it had already been released, because as much as I like Star Wars, I don't buy too many of the figures. I buy Jedis mostly, or Sith Lords. I don't buy too many of other characters like Boba Fett. I've got a Han Solo. That's probably the only one besides Jedis I've got.
I get, Luke, Obi-Wan, Darth Vader, and then Boba Fett. That's about it. And I do have the Han and Carbonite and the Kenner 40th anniversary package, because I just had to have that. So I do try to get all the Boba Fetts or whatnot, and I've had this figure for probably a year and a half.
Well, I was surprised it was this prototype armor. I know that they've got Boba Fett, the Book of Boba Fett going on right now, so cash in on it while you can. But we all know as soon as we saw him crawling out of the ground, out of the sand, Hasbro was sitting there like, "That's the next big seller."
Oh, that's coming. Muddy variant Boba Fett will be here before the year's out.
But I couldn't believe it wasn't this one, since this one's not even until December anyway.
All it is they showed that little Book of Boba Fett behind the scenes deal.
Yeah.
And they touched on his origin, that was the first concept. And we were actually wanted elite stormtroopers. Even though they gave him the damn name Boba Fett, which made no sense if he was going to be a bunch of elite troopers. Why did this one get a name? But he did. And then they couldn't afford to make more than one suit. So then they mocked it up. He became a bounty hunter and most popular character in Star Wars, pretty much. Or one of. So, I mean, it's like, let's capitalize on this. Re-release this figure. Instead of saying it's a re-release, it is an exclusive.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they sell it well. I mean, it's a $26.49 price tag, and it's on Amazon for pre-order now. I haven't looked to see if it's sold out. I have no.
It'll sell out, but you will
inclination to
find
buy
it
it.
far cheaper on eBay a year from now than the one that's hanging on the wall.
Probably. But while we're on Hasbro, we've got one more of their properties. We've got the Marvel Legends, and this is just an update to. We've already covered what's coming out in this wave, but the Bone Breaker Build-A-Figure wave is expected right now to go up for sale at retailers for pre-order on January 27th. Now, that's also a rumored release date overseas. There's no rumor of the release date here in the States or what the pre-order time frame is going to be. I'm assuming the way they've been waiting lately, that probably if they're putting it up in January, maybe it's June or July because they're hoping they'll probably have it here by then. But we'll see. But again, those are going up for pre-order on January 27th, and I've got to pick up a couple of those, so I'm excited to see those up. But not expecting them right away, and I wouldn't be either for anybody else out there.
No, because I mean, I know I stumbled upon. We live in a black hole of action figures in the town I live in, and the Apocalypse Build-A-Figure wave was actually on our Walmart shelves probably a month and a half before I got mine in my pile of loot at Big Bad Toy Store.
Yeah, because the Cyclops that was on your shelves is hanging on my wall now because my mother picked it up and sent it.
That's what you probably had it on your wall before I had mine open so I could have a Colossus.
It might have been here before then. I didn't have it on my wall after Christmas. She made me wait till Christmas to open it. But while we're on comic characters, we do have some news out of McFarlane. They seem to pump out news regularly. Some of it positive, some of it not so much so. But they do have some more figures coming out right now from Multiversus. He revealed it's focused on Batman Beyond, and honestly, they're all repaints of already released figures, and one's got a new head sculpt, but it's ink as Batman Beyond. An unmasked Batwoman Beyond and Blight. They're up for pre-order now. Actually, they went up after I made the notes here, but they're set for a March release date. But it's honestly just repaints again. So
they do a lot of that.
And we've mentioned this next one before too, and this is also another repaint and repackaging. It's the Dark Knight Returns Batman vs Superman 2-pack. That pre-order is up now too, but both these figures were already in single packs, and it's just a slight repainting of them to make them a little brighter, I think, and then. The only thing new you're going to get out of this is the fact that it comes with a diorama when they do the 2-pack, like a little backdrop diorama, and they do that with all their 2-packs, so you'll get that. But that's the only thing of note that's new
The
out
Batman
of it.
doesn't look bad. The Superman looks terrible. But they went too close to the Frank Miller art, even giving the like turd-looking S-curl that hung off his head.
But you already had these in single packs, so why are we even bothering to do them in a 2-pack is my thing.
Because it comes with a foot stand now.
Yeah. And they've also shown a few other items that actually went for pre-order today. These are kind of not necessarily breaking news, but we already talked about them. But Rebirth Batman, Damian Wayne from Infinite Frontier, which is his black costume, and then Clayface Mega Figure, all those went up for pre-order as of this morning.
And Damian doesn't look bad, though. I thought it looked pretty good.
It does, but they already did that, Robin. I think the body is just a repaint. The head's a new mold, honestly. And the unmasked version is really just the same head, just without a mask on it. But we do have also the Atrocitus Build-A-Figure wave is up for pre-order on Amazon, and that one's got, and it's just that wave. It's not the Mega Figs that were listed for those two. Were rumored at the same time, but it's they're all Blackest Night inspired decoration, and I think the only one I think that's not a Black Lantern is the Kyle Rayner. He should be the Green Lantern version, and then you got Batman, Superman, and we know Deathstorm is a Black Lantern, but I'm assuming the Batman and Superman are as well. We haven't seen actual pictures. They're just up for pre-order, but there's no picture with them. So on Amazon, they're just listing them with picture to come soon. But release date is set as July 30th for those. And coming out of that, we can go straight into comic news. And Marvel has got a lot of news this week. I didn't see a whole lot of DC news out there, but Marvel's actually had a pretty good bit. And the first bit of news is there's a lot of, as they're calling it, legendary returns. Artist John Romita Jr. is returning to Amazing Spider-Man this April for Spider-Man's 60th anniversary. It's going to kick off a new volume of Spider-Man starting at Amazing Spider-Man #1 again, which is a bit of a downer because I get tired of them changing the number structure.
That's the only thing I'm negative on this about. I mean, I'm pretty happy to see, Romita come back. But I hate them doing #1s just to sell a few extra issues. Because all it does, it feels like you're throwing things away and you sell a few extra issues for one damn month. By issue 3, The people that you brought on board to buy those few extra issues, they're gone.
And I'm hoping it does well. I'm not a. While I love Spider-Man, I am not the hugest John Romita Jr. fan of artwork. Now, I think some of his earlier stuff was better. The further out you get, his
Before
later
he got
stuff.
a little slender. He started drawing Spidey a little more slender than before. But I mean, he was part of some really great stories, even with that art.
He draws Spider-Man very slender, but everybody else he draws, like Superman, Thor, he draws them as a block shape and puts so many dark lines across them you can't tell where a shadow ends and the character begins. And that kind of annoys me sometimes. Now, he's done that in the later years. His earlier years was much, much better to me, but my concern with
But
this
he drew like
series
his father in his earlier years. Before he developed his own style, as he put it, he drew a lot like his father, which was, classic, iconic Marvel.
And that's what I'd rather see myself. But no, I can get past his art if it's a great story. That's my concern, is that the writer of this series is going to be Zeb Wells, which his Beyond Spider-Man stuff has actually been really, really good. And I'll give him credit for that. But the stuff he was doing prior to that, like his New Warriors run and stuff, that's when just prior to Civil War, and he had the New Warriors comic book, and it was very kid-friendly, comedic and stuff. And I didn't care for that, because Spider-Man's got to have some serious stuff if you're going to do it. And
well, this seems to have a serious tone in the one picture I've seen. I mean, I didn't have as much info as you had today.
That's why I'm hoping it's going to be good, because that one picture you're talking about is just several panels of Spider-Man sitting in the crater and his suit's all tore up, and the tagline is, "What did Peter do?" Which is what this is all about. I mean, from what I read today from the synopsis, it's like Spider-Man's luck is Parker luck gets even worse. He's on the outs with everybody from Aunt May to the Fantastic Four to the Avengers and X-Men and everyone else, and the only person who is actively seeking him is actually Dr. Octopus, because he's got some new nefarious master plan that he's, trying to torture Spidey with.
It's not like a hot single female seeking you. It is run the other way seeking you.
Yeah, so we're going to see how it is, and I will continue buying it because it is Spider-Man, but I'm just curious if it's... I was excited at first to see Romita Jr. from the picture they showed, but then I saw some of the other artwork, and I was like, why does this Spider-Man look like
the cover does look better than the teaser picture they showed it out, say.
Yeah, and Scott Hanna's doing the inks on that, and he does a great job, so maybe it'll balance out and it will still be good, but we'll see. But that starts in April, but also in April we've got several legendary creators coming back to or taking part in their first Thor stories. It's going to be in issue number 24 of the current Thor run, which is the 750th legacy issue celebration, which is one of those things that irks me too. I was like, well, just either pick a numbering scheme and stick with it, or go back to the original and stick with it.
They dust them off for the big issues when it gets to 50 or 100, whatever they're on.
When they realize they're going to have one that's an anniversary special, like it's 750, why didn't you just do the same thing DC did with Action Comics and just keep numbering into the 1000s or whatever? Just stop.
Stay with it.
But we've got several people coming back for that. J. Michael Straczynski, who had a long run on Thor. Oliver Coipel, and I may have butchered his name. He's an artist. I don't know if he ever actually drew Thor, if this is his first time, but his artwork's amazing.
If I'm not mistaken, he was the artist that was on there when Straczynski was on there, and he rebooted him.
Was it?
When he come back from the dead, because I have that number one actually graded
that may have been.
I just don't,
I didn't buy any back then, so I didn't remember. But
that's when Asgard was floating over Broxton. That was
okay. I know what you're talking about now.
Yeah.
Dan Jurgens is going to be involved. He had a long history of writing both Superman and Thor. Walter Simonson, probably one of the most prolific names with Thor, outside of Stan Lee. But Walter Simonson had one of the longest runs and introduced so many things to the Thor mythos. He's going to be in there. Al Ewing, Tom DeFalco, and there were a lot more that were listed that I just didn't have time to write them all down. But these names alone, Tom DeFalco was the editor-in-chief for Marvel for a long time. Walter Simonson was on there forever. Al Ewing was there forever. So, it'd be interesting to see them come out. It's going to be they're doing separate stories inside of the one issue, and I don't know if they interlink, if they're all completely separate, but it'd be great to see them do some stories in that. And I think Jason Aaron, of course, is pretty sure he's still on Thor, and his story is the main one in the issue, but he'll be there as well.
I like to pick that issue up. That'll be pretty nice.
Yeah. And then some stuff that might not be so nice, because they keep changing these X titles every time you turn around. It's like they started this with Jonathan Hickman, and then when he left, they're like, we don't know what to do, so let's just keep making
Well,
stuff
he
up
did
as we
kind of
go.
muddle the water a little bit for him. He left him a dirty sandbox.
Yeah, he did. But they've got a few new titles coming out in April. Legion of X is the first one. It's a follow-up to Way of X and Return of Onslaught, which was focused on Nightcrawler and a few others, and the religion aspect of Nightcrawler's trying to start a mutant religion, but at the same time, it's like, can you really have a religion? Do we really even have souls since we keep dying and being brought back in new bodies with our minds? But where's our soul going? And they really didn't answer that in that book, even though that book was kind of interesting at first, but that led straight into Return of Onslaught. But now you've got this Legion of X title, and they're being called Krakoa's greatest protectors. Their goal is to find and help the lost, which I'm assuming lost in this term is like the depressed, rudderless mutants of the world. But the team is Nightcrawler, Dr. Nemesis, Pixie, and Legion, who are all in Way of X prominently, and then Juggernaut's joining them, which I'm not a fan of. I prefer Juggernaut to be a villain most of the time, or at least a slightly misunderstood one or whatever.
The only time I really cared for him is when Ron Gurney was on the title back in the early 2000s. And he was trying that redemption. He had the little fish boy and all that. His little
and I
like that.
I was good with it, but I like it where it's he's the ultimate brawn versus Professor X's brains as being as their stepbrothers or whatever, and I like that much better. But the rest of the cast for this book is going to be a rotating supporting cast who come in and go as they were, which is the same thing Way of X was. Like Dazzler was in half the issues of that, and the other half she wasn't. I don't have high hopes necessarily for that title. I mean, I'm sure I'll get it because it's X-Men, but most of their titles are going that way. And the next one they've got coming up in April is X-Men Red. And this is a follow-up to Planet Size X-Men one-shot that's coming out in March, which we haven't seen yet. But really all it's focused on is what they're going to do with their Mars colony now that they've terraformed it. And, they did that in the Hellfire Gala, and they named it the capital of the solar system, and they're part of the Intergalactic Council for the solar system instead of someone from Earth. I don't care about any of the mutants from Araco because they just made them up this year, and I don't have any connection to them. And I don't really care about much of what's going on their Mars colony, short of having people like Storm and Sunspot in it. But the rest of it kind of, I'm just not intrigued.
Did they ever do anything with that Captain Kakara or whatever the hell the new character they made?
That's coming out as part of all this new stuff. I don't know exactly what they're doing with it yet. He hasn't even hit the stands yet, I don't think, unless it was this week.
I mean, his costume looks interesting enough, other than the little flowers coming off his damn head.
Yeah, and I think that book either hits this week or next month's book. I've seen a few panels here and there, but I haven't had a chance to see or read the book to see what it's about.
I'm not sure which one of the titles it is. One of the new ones, I seen a teaser, and Cerebro was on Forge's head, and it said that Cerebro gained sentience. And
Cerebrax, yeah, and that's in X-Force.
That looked kind of interesting, but at the same time, are you just repeating Danger?
Yeah, pretty much. The other thing we had for X-Men, though, is and unfortunately, by the time we've recorded this, you won't be able to vote anymore because voting ends at midnight tonight, and they probably won't make it on the YouTube till tomorrow. But second annual X-Men team election vote to choose the newest member of the X-Men coming into the June into the Hellfire Gala, which the nominees for this one were much less prominent than last year. Last year you had Polaris win last year, but you also had Forge, Banshee, Sunspot, Cannonball, known mutants who should be on the X-Men. This year's nominees are a bunch of the kids that they keep killing off and bringing back that I could care less about. But you've got Armor, which she's been in a lot of stuff, but I don't care much for her. Avalanche, which was a much better Brotherhood of Mutants villain, and I really don't want to see him on the X-Men team, but he's a good character. Bling, Firestar, who is actually who I voted for because I can get behind Firestar being on the team because she's a prominent mutant, even though she's not
one
really
of the amazing friends,
X-Men.
Of course. I mean, come on.
Yeah, and that's really, other than the last couple of years being on the training staff when the X-Men had the school, she really hasn't been a X-Men mutant. She's just been a mutant who's around.
Yeah.
But I can get behind her. And then you've got Gentle and Gorgon, Micromax, Penance, which I could somewhat get behind Penance because she served her time in Generation X and came up and had an intriguing storyline. They've tried to do a few more things with her recently, but again, not one I would necessarily pick unless she was the only choice. And Siren, which is one that I could support. She's been X Factor and X Force, and she's been there forever. Now I'd rather have Banshee, but if I can't have Banshee, I would take Siren. And the last one being Surge. I think the winner's not going to be revealed until June when they do the second annual Hellfire Gala storyline, which I'm surprised they planned that out all the way to June to actually do another one of those, because that was, I don't know.
It didn't do too
X-Men
well,
books,
did it?
all the X-Men books keep selling well, but they're not. I mean, they're not like they were in the '90s by any means, but they're still selling well enough to be getting the same treatment. So I don't know. It amazes me.
To me, there was too many villains on this list, and I get that they're banding the good guys and bad guys together, all under the mutant banner, so to speak. But I mean, I don't want to see Avalanche as a good guy. He is a unredeemable piece of shit bad guy mutant. That's who I want to see him as. Gorgon, same way. I mean, he is a murderer.
Yeah.
Armor hasn't been interesting since, Josh Whedon wrote the title. I mean, she was great in that title. Great. He made her really good. Afterwards, everyone else did not.
Yeah.
I mean, Firestar is to me is a no-brainer on that, and Siren would be interesting. I mean, she's not the Casty I would want, and I'm not sure what they did with her old man. Is he alive? Dead?
Yeah, he's still there. They actually all the characters who did not get picked in the first annual vote, they're actually doing a one-shot issue called Secret X-Men, and they have to team up together to deal with a threat to Krakoa and stuff. And all the ones who weren't picked, like Sunspot, Cannonball, Forge, Banshee, they're all going to be part of that storyline. And actually,
the last thing I had seen him, he was like at one point a horseman of the apocalypse, and then
he's been
I guess he was kind of
since
a
then.
mindless being after that for a while or something.
Yeah, he's been resurrected to a new body and stuff since then, which is what they do with all of them. So,
of course,
that Secret X-Men book actually looks pretty interesting. I think it comes out in March. I've got it solicited for my stuff, but with that, we can move into our movie and TV news, which is our last news section for this week, because we talked about a lot of stuff coming out in our last week episode, but we didn't have a lot of horror stuff listed. So what our actual show this week is about is the horror stuff. So we'll get into that in a moment as we pass through these. But a couple of announcements on folks who passed away, unfortunately, in the last week or so. What I remember this one from mostly is In the Heat of the Night, which I know he's been in a ton of stuff, but Sidney Poitier passed away at the age of 94 on January 6th. And then the single dad who raised pretty much all of our generation, Danny Tanner himself, Mr. Bob Saget, passed away at the age of 65 on the 9th of January. So we'll take a moment here and give them a moment of silence. And with that, we will actually now move into the rest of our movie and TV news, which will hopefully be a little more upbeat. CW Arrowverse, and I guess I missed these last week. One of these is a premiere, the other was just a season 2 premiere, so it wouldn't have been in our normal talk, but we should have mentioned them last week, and I honestly didn't even notice them until the day they were happening. But on Tuesday of this week, DC's new series, Naomi, premiered on CW. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. I'm not high hopes on this one now. I will admit this character, when they made her in her own book, she was really good in that book, because I read a few snippets here and there. She was great when they put her in Young Justice, because she was a new powerhouse character that they were making, and just happened to be a diverse character where she's adopted, she's female, she's African American, her parents are different races, and okay, we're doing a diverse character, but they didn't never really mention that. Now that they put her in the Justice League, it's like they keep trying to say, you're the powerhouse of the team, you're more powerful than Superman. They're trying to push her as the diversity character. Whereas,
that's where they go wrong. If you've got a great character, they don't have to be more powerful than the core members. They don't have to say, hey, I'm the baddest motherfucker on the planet. No, we don't got to measure dicks here. Make them interesting and great, and people will continue to buy.
Yeah, and she was a good character in her own book as well as in, like I said, Young Justice, but now they're kind of pushing her as that diversity character. I don't know how the show is going to be. It's a CW show, so I'm sure it's going to be the diversity thing. But
I wanted to hit you with this. I read this article yesterday, I think it was. Have you seen the article? They have, I guess, some behind the scenes and prominent people within, the CW network has claimed that the CW network has never been profitable. Despite the Arrowverse popularity, shows like Smallville and Supernatural and, all the shows they've had, even the new Superman and Lois show.
Yeah, which, by the way, before you go any further, that was the other announcement for premieres. That season 2 of it started on Tuesday the 11th as well, and that was actually good because I did watch it.
But they claim that the network has never been profitable at all.
It hasn't. Well, think back to what that network started as UPN. Then it became the WB,
Yep.
and then the CW. Now all the shows it had, it's a network television and it's a cable TV. But even look at their streaming platform. Their CW streaming platform is completely free. There is no subscription at all, and it comes
And
out
then
the day
now they're
after.
on they were on Netflix in some of the shows. Now they're
Yep.
on either on HBO Max or on Paramount, or is it Peacock?
It,
One of the two.
it depends on the show. Like all their DC stuff is now going to what they already have contracts for Netflix is still on Netflix unless they've run out. Like the Flash and Legends Tomorrow, all those drop 2 weeks on Netflix the entire season after the season ends on CW. But all their new shows like Stargirl, Naomi, and all those are going to HBO Max because it's a DC property, and that's where they're putting their stuff. So I'm assuming most of it's going to HBO Max overall.
And apparently they can get a great deal on that. I'm not sure, but aren't they like subsidiary of Time Warner and all of that good jazz?
I don't know if the CW network itself is, but they have a partnership with them at least. If they're not, again, AT&T owns all that stuff at this point with Time Warner and all, but HBO Max, also owns all the DC property stuff because I guess they're a subsidiary of AT&T as well. But all that stuff makes sense to go there. I don't know why you wouldn't just premiere it there now and just cut off the CW at this point because there's nothing on there other than their shows.
Unless it's either a tax write-off for them or what they consider not profitable, and you know what I'm saying, and going in the hole of two different things.
Maybe it would
maybe they're turning a profit, but not the profit they want.
Yeah, and that could be, but I've always heard that they're the least out of all the networks as far as making any money. So,
but
I'm
they've
not
got really
surprised
quality
by
shows,
that.
which is surprising. Like Supernatural, I'll put that about against anything out there, and especially the amount of seasons and the length of their seasons.
Oh yeah, but again, that's one show out of your whole slate. And what do they run all day long when they don't have their shows on during the day? A lot of places, like when I lived in Missouri and you watch TV, they don't have a CW channel. They partner with another channel, so during the day you get CBS News or ABC News or whatever it is, and all their shows, and then at night they run the CW slate of shows.
I've seen that on a handful of things when I still had Dish before I went to Hulu
Yeah.
Live. I
Like
always seen that.
during the day, they have none of their own talk shows or own news, any of that. So I mean, I can see where it's not profitable. It's just surprising that they come out and say it so often.
They didn't mind putting it out
Blatantly.
there. I was like, wow, that's oof.
Oh, well, before we move into our focus topics, we do have one more movie and TV news item, and it's we've got an announcement now on the premiere date for the third season of The Boys. They will start on Friday, June the 3rd, with the first 3 episodes of an 8-episode season, and it'll be single episodes every Friday after that until July 8th, which is the finale.
I'm pretty stoked about this. I'm a big fan of The Boys. It's what I would probably be if I were a superhero, sadly. So
I enjoy
like
it. I enjoy it, and it's one of those ones that is a must watch. But if I would be lying if I told you it's one of my top tier shows, but it's just one of those that's so intriguing you got to watch it. So I turn it on and watch it.
This is just very enjoyable.
Yeah. Well, with that, we've been on news for a little bit, so why don't we move into our focus topics tonight, which is it's all based on horror. Like I said, we didn't get a chance to really talk horror movies when we did our movie and show recap for the year last week. So we wanted to take this week and spend time focusing on that. So whereas you are more of the expert on these, Hassel, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you start walking us through it. And the first thing we were going to talk about is what's some of the top franchises and stuff.
Ooh, man, this is my meat and potatoes right here. It's and I actually done my research for once. I didn't just go with favorites like I wanted to. I actually did do my old research here, and starting off at number 10, Child's Play, 155 million.
Really?
And now it's
Does that include the new TV show or no?
No, that's not counting the
Just
TV
movies?
show. Because the TV show has its own separate deal.
Okay.
But this is just encompassing the theatrical movies. The child, 1, 2, 3, Bride, Seed, and then that abomination of a reboot.
So we are going to talk about reboots later too. So
yes. But that's 155 million. Moving on to number 9. Now I got them all out of order here. I was listing and went back and done the research. Surprisingly, Friday the 13th. Was it number 9? I would have thought it'd have made,
I'd
but
have, I'd have
the
thought it
movies
was
dropped
top
in the
5.
80s. So I honestly, you got to take inflation into account now.
So your numbers are before inflation accounting?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, these are what they have drawn
How much is
worldwide.
it? How much is it right now?
$468 million.
Oh, while you talk us through it, I'm gonna see if I can figure out what the inflation calculator would make that.
Yeah, I mean that's like some of these older movies or older franchises. I'm sure will be far more, higher up than what it. Yeah, which means like $82 million, $82.6 million was Jason versus Freddy. So I mean that tells you right there, because I mean that came out 20 years ago at this point, and it drew $82 million. So where Friday the 13th 4 or 5 would open and make $3-4 million, and it only took $1 million to make. It was considered very popular, but they made their movies back on the back end of DVD sales or VHS sales and rentals and whatnot at that point.
So that would inflate close to 10 million.
Yeah, so okay. We'll go to number 7. Or no, I'm sorry, 8. Insidious franchise.
Seriously?
But the Insidious franchise has got some balls here. They're at 540 million, and they actually have a new movie coming out. In fact, that drops on. Okay, I don't have a drop date. I thought I did, but the trailer did just release, and it was pretty badass. The guy from the first 2, he is directing them. From the guy that plays the brother in Aquaman and the Conjuring movies, he's going to direct it. And him and some of the characters from it's supposed to take place 10 years after the second one. But yeah, they got $540 million. I was pretty impressed with that. Moving on to number 7.
I don't see a date for it either. I was looking at that while you were talking through it.
I thought I had it, but
the last one that's got a date is the one that was a 2018 film. So
number 7 is one of my favorites, Nightmare on Elm Street. 540 million as well. They were kind of tied between them and Insidious, and I selfishly put them as 7 over Insidious because, that's my boy. I mean, I got him tattooed on my leg, so I had no choice but to do so. But Freddy, like I said, he's 540 million, and then again, 82.6 million of that was in the Versus movie. We'll move on to 6, Scream franchise, which also has a movie dropping this Friday.
Yeah, I was going to mention that when we got to reboots because I completely glossed that over last week when we were doing our stuff. But they have a reboot. I guess it's a soft reboot from it because the original characters are still in it and back as the same characters.
Yeah, I think it's. I don't know if it's more of a continuation or did they do what Halloween did?
From what I saw, it's supposed to, and I could be completely wrong, but I'm just reading it from what I saw when I looked it up. It was it is a reboot that's going to take into account the first movie and probably ignore some of the stuff from the sequels from what I read.
I got you.
So some of the stuff that happened after that one is now not there.
They made a respectable $600 million. I mean, that's a Wes Craven property, so I can get behind it. I mean, that's.
I'm surprised you're looking that high.
Yeah, I was as well.
It was one of those to me that out of all the slasher type movies you put like that, that was the one that was like, it didn't make sense to me because I was like, this is a dude running around. I get he's calling you, he's scaring you, setting all this up, but this dude is running around killing people. There's nothing supernatural about him. He is not an unstoppable machine like Michael or
No.
Why is he so hard? God bless if somebody and we're from the South.
Teenage punks in the first movie. I mean that.
Yeah,
come on now.
We are from the South. If that teenage punk walked into your house in South, most likely you got a shotgun and several shells already loaded, and he's blown away.
For him. It's not. I got Lucille in one corner. I got a judge around here, and it's not going to be good for him.
Yeah, I've got a battle axe somewhere in my room. I mean, like if you make it all the way to my bedroom, you're getting chopped.
Hey, we got a lightsaber on the wall here, but I mean, I'll give it credit. Between that and Freddy, Wes Craven, he's got over $1 billion here in this top 10. So that is quite commendable. Number 5, coming in at $775 million, the Halloween franchise. So I mean, my boy Michael broke the top 5 here. I'm pretty happy with that. I honestly, I would have thought Freddy and Jason would have been in the top 5. I was kind of surprised.
I'm honestly surprised they're not in the top 2 or 3. I mean,
Well,
short of Universal monster movies, what is there? I'm kind of curious now.
they were the actual fathers of the slashers, so to speak, in the 80s.
Yeah.
And but at 775 million, the jump to the 4th place franchise is substantial, coming in at $1 billion. $1 billion. Saw franchise.
I guess for that one, I can see being where it's at and the money. I think the gap is probably not as much if you account for the inflation because we checked the one and it's from a 4 to a 10 million, so the gap probably isn't as big. But they've all been in this time period, so there's no inflation. So if they've got $1 billion, they've got it.
Yeah, and I mean,
and they've got what 5 or 6 of those now.
Oh, there's at least 5 or 6 of them, and then a spiral as a off type deal. And I mean, it was like the Halloween tradition there for a couple years in a row, like at least for the first 3 or 4 parts, I think. So it was every Halloween.
So let me ask this, because I thought I read this somewhere, and I could be completely wrong, but is the escape room movie set in the same universe? Because everybody's doing shared universes now since Marvel did it. Is the escape room the same universe as Saw, or is this completely different? I know they're different properties, but
I'm not sure, honestly. I don't very well versed into the escape room.
I'm not either, but I thought I read that they were supposed to be in the same universe, but maybe I'm completely wrong. So don't quote me.
I can see as how somebody that was, there with Jigsaw might have spun off and done their own thing. But I mean, let's face it, after part 3, I think every one of them was someone that was, a part of Jigsaw was doing all the doo-doos. But coming in at number 3 with a $1.65 billion, the Alien franchise.
Okay, see, I can see that. My only thing about that is I almost consider that more of a sci-fi than a horror one. I know it has
classified horror. Well, I mean, these aren't the Predator movie, Alien versus Predator. These are just the Aliens 1, 2, 3. What was it? Resurrection.
Yeah,
and then
I can see where you could,
Prometheus and all that.
And that's one of those things where a lot of these things fit into more than one category. I can see where they fall in that. I just always considered them more sci-fi. Just like if somebody says Terminator to you, that's sci-fi to me. And I've heard people say that's a horror movie. I'm like, not to me, but
yeah. When I was doing my research, there were a few lists I seen here. They were like Terminator was squeezed in there.
Yeah.
But I mean, let's be honest. First one, you might get okay, that's kind of horror movie, especially back in the 80s. When it comes to part 2, it's just pure action movie, and the Terminator is an action hero in the movie.
Yeah, it becomes action and full on sci-fi to me at that point. Which Alien's a sci-fi too, and I guess a sci-fi horror. But I just wasn't thinking of it being in the top ones. But yeah, now that you say it's in there, well, yeah, I completely get it. I see why that's in there, but I wouldn't have thought that.
Well, you're going to be really shocked with number 2. 1.75 billion for It Chapter 1 and 2. Which, I mean, It Chapter 1 smashed $700 million in itself.
Yeah, and I know that one's a horror one, and I get that, and I actually get where it's at. But I'm curious, is that just the recent 2, or does that encompass all the times that it has been redone, whether TV or film?
This was
what is that, like the third time it's been
1
done
and 2, because there was $700 million for Chapter 1 and $475 million for Chapter 2, which I mean that's substantial. Still close to $500 million, even for Chapter 2, even with the fall off.
When did Chapter 2 come out?
Chapter 2 did 2 years ago, just before the pandemic, I think.
Okay, I was wondering if it was before the pandemic or during it. Yeah. As I say, if it was during it, then I get at the start of it, I get the drop.
The pandemic started really cracking down around December of the end of 2019, early 2020.
It started in December of 19, but as far as lockdown and stuff, all that started in March of 2020.
So I mean, it dropped in like September of 19. So I mean, it done well. It just didn't have the rewatch factor. I mean, I enjoyed it, but it didn't have the rewatch factor the first one had.
Could have been the timing too, depending on what else was coming out, or it was already in the theaters, because I don't remember that time frame of what was already there. If you pop it out during the time there's a Marvel movie or something out there, you might as well expect to get crushed. I mean, But at the same time, if you pop it out in December, not too many people want to watch horror in December, but you put it out in October, you got a chance.
Well, the number one king, I'm going to be honest, I was surprised, but once I got to looking at it, it's not surprising. Coming in at $2.125 billion, the Conjuring universe. They have just smashed the box office the last few years. Which, I mean, they're really great and well done movies. I mean, they'll creep you the hell out, though. The last one probably had the least amount of demonic force in it. It wound up being a witch at the end, or a Satanist, I guess. And dude, there was parts of that movie that creeped me the hell out more than any of the others.
Oh yeah, I don't watch any of those, man. I can't. But so I'm surprised you didn't hear, or that we didn't hear Amityville in there. And I'm sure that I'm wrong on this, but for some reason I thought it was the same universe as The Conjuring, but it's not, is it?
Actually, it is. The Warrens did do some work inside of the Amityville house during the original Amityville slaying.
So is those movies included in there too, or are they
No,
considered separate?
They're not included in there. I'm sure that we're going to get a chapter of The Conjuring that deals with that right there. But I want to, if I'm not mistaken, the last one, The Devil Made Me Do It, it took place right after that, because it seems like at the very beginning there's like a little throwaway scene that touches on them dealing with the Amityville dealings.
That may be. I remember that particular film. I mean, obviously I didn't watch it because I don't watch any of those. They are a little bit too realistic in some of the stuff to me. And I say realistic in meaning that, not that I necessarily think that everything that happens in the movie is real, but they try to make it too set in the real world and this stuff happened for me to say I feel comfortable watching that.
Well, there's a whole, regardless of how spiritual you are, level of arguability based on the true story. They do put that in there. There is a museum with all these artifacts in these movies there, and with a backstory and so forth and so on. So it's all what you want to believe.
I know a couple of folks who have been to that museum, and I'll tell you, after talking to them, they're like, dude, it's the museum when you're in there is like, okay, it's just, whatever. But so like when you leave there, you feel creepy for like weeks afterwards, like something's just watching you or following you around. So it's like it's the weirdest feeling. And I've met about 3, maybe 4 people who have been there and talked to them all separately when talking about it, just because they're not necessarily friends with each other. They might know each other, some of them, and some of them don't. But just talking to them all separately, and they all tell you the same thing. I'm like, that's kind of weird.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, the mind's a powerful thing. You kind of work yourself up into some things, but for weeks at a time. I mean, and I'll be honest, dude, that last movie, there was just a particular scene in it where like it was, this old preacher, he was talking to him, and something he said, it just, for whatever reason, it like hung in the back of my head. And a couple times, just like randomly, I'd wake up at a weird hour in the middle of the night, and that part would be in my mind for some reason. It was like, holy shit, that's creepy as hell.
Yeah, I can see that.
So I mean, and over $2 billion, they're doing something right.
Well, I think mentioning that one kind of brings us into our second topic for the night, because we were going to talk about not just reboots, but what works and what doesn't, and also along with that, what's the current landscape of properties look like? Because one of the things we talked about last week, it was hard for us to even come up with the movies to throw in there when we were talking about what's coming out this year.
I really had to look
stuff out there.
Because I mean, there was only a handful of things that I knew were coming. Because there's been a big decline in horror. I mean, and their popularity is still there. I mean, if you look on these streaming services, they're some of the most searched movies, but you're rewatching a lot of the same thing over and over and over.
Yeah, and I think that's what made me think about that when you're talking about how much that one has done and how that, from a horror aspect to me, when you get talking about the spiritual stuff and the demons and stuff, that's continuing to sell, but your other stuff is declining. Like outside of that, you got a few franchises that hold on and a few tropes that hold on. But when I look at the properties, and I'm like, you're seeing the same slashers. You're seeing, Freddy and Jason again and Michael again, right? They're not making new ones really. You're getting a Scream reboot. This is not new stuff. And then you're looking at other Universal monsters, right? the Wolfman, vampires. This stuff isn't getting pushed as much anymore as horror. And I was going to
No,
ask
and
you some of
sadly,
this.
the Wolfman remake come out a few years back. I mean, it's been more than a few years at this point. That's a really great movie. It's an underappreciated movie. I mean, it was probably part of a new shared universe. And the Benicio del Toro and Anthony Hopkins, they told a great story. I mean, the effects were wonderful. You had Rick Baker doing the Wolfman. Anytime you have Rick Baker doing a Wolfman, you've got gold. And it done well at the box office, but not well enough for them to want to continue.
Yeah, but so tell me this though: do you think we're just running out of those tropes there? Now, I'm leaving the stuff out that continues to sell, like The Conjuring and the demon worship, the Exorcist, all the stuff that's demonized, right? That sells as creepy. Do you think we've run out of fresh takes and ideas on this other stuff? Are we romanticizing too much of the stuff? Let's take vampires, for instance. You got the tween sparkly vampires on TV shows for Vampire Diaries. You got the Twilight movies. Are we making these things where they are no longer scary to us? Have we romanticized it to a point?
That's probably a good bit of it at least for the werewolf and the vampire. These are teen properties, Vampire Diaries, and they've got a couple different spinoffs or whatever. And then you have the True Blood bullshit that was on HBO where they made the vampire the heartthrob of the show. And
you're taking the horror out of it, though. These are no longer scary things anymore. We're like, okay,
once they become sympathetic characters and you get behind them, like, he's got to bite a throat out at the end of the night to survive, but it's only to survive. I mean, come on.
With the generation that's out there now, and I'm not picking, but they would say, well, Michael and Jason, they weren't wrong. We should just give them more therapy.
Yeah, they were just bullied as poor children, so they have no choice to be psychotic assholes today and murder the hell out of
I was
people.
saying you're taking that away. Same thing with zombies, even. Day of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead, all those used to scare the crap out of me when I was younger because these dead people rose up and they're coming, and those were scary, especially in black and white. But
dude, I'll be honest.
You watch
Dawn of the Dead, the remake. I mean, and we'll touch this when we go to doing the reboot section of this. That Dawn of the Dead remake, Zack Snyder, he done great. But then again, as great as he done in that movie actually made me fear zombies. The last few seasons of The Walking Dead, you have made them just feel like
they're just
anybody could go. Yeah, because literally they're the most least feared character in the whole damn show. Yeah, they kill you, or bite you, they got the most consequences. But like in the first season or two, one walker showed up, all hell broke loose. Somebody had to die. You lost a loved one. Now 30 of them walk up and they're just going.
Yeah, but 10 years later, it's gotten to the point where we just expect them to show up. It's like it's like termite season. We expect the termites to show up and try to eat the house. We'll just put a little bait out for them, try to kill them, whatever.
And just spray a little roach spray around the house, make sure.
They are no longer a feared thing. They're part of the landscape. We know they're coming, and we spent 10 years with them. We know how to deal with it.
With that Army of the Dead movie, I mean, he made that into a comedy for the most part, like a little heist comedy deal with zombies in the background that wound up breeding and having a child.
Yeah,
I mean. You can take the mythology, and if you don't care enough, and honor, and that's what I'm going to really delve into when we get into the reboot section. Is
so let's jump in.
That's what makes or breaks them.
That was my big question on the stuff now. Is with the lack of horror and stuff, what's declining? And I think a lot of it is just the romanticizing of it, and making it more sympathetic, and it's there, and we're used to it. But let's talk about the reboots, because I think that's a problem with some of the reboots as well.
Well, look at what works and what doesn't work. Well, we can start right there, because I mean, it was well up in the top, of our, franchises, and it only had 2. But they respected the core mythology, give it some great, effects to go with it, a great cast, and you had something there. On the opposite end, where they took Freddy Krueger, the Nightmare on Elm Street remake that was in 2010. Yep. And the crew that done that had done some other reboots that were really good. However, and I'm not knocking, Jackie Earle Haley. I think he's a great actor, but they totally shit on everything that made Freddy Krueger work. They started with the makeup. His makeup made him like a damn rat. I mean, he has this like face that comes down like a damn rat. He's not Freddy Krueger looking. He has a horrible lisp the whole. And well, I get it. He's not going to sound like Robert England. I'm fine with that. Change the voice. I'm fine with that.
If
But
you
when
make
you,
it intimidating.
yeah, like a lispy guy, I'm not worried about Dusty Bowles coming after me with a
I was to
particular
say,
knife. I
if
mean,
if you
no.
give it another voice and you say it's like a, you take Robert England and you change. All right, well, we're going to give you a different Freddy, and you make the voice a deep booming voice like a Lawrence Fishburne or something, and he can sound creepy at times, or Morgan Freeman. They can sound real creepy if they really wanted to.
Clancy Brown is in this damn movie. If you got a voice
Yes,
like
I was
Clancy
trying to think of
Brown,
him.
I mean, he is in this damn movie, but they
But
didn't respect the
Dusty Rhodes
mythology.
ain't scaring. Dusty Rhodes, baby, ain't scaring
No,
nobody.
baby, I just want them chili dogs with mustard on them. We're not worried about killing the little kids tonight, baby. But and then they changed the mythology too in the movie. I mean, half the movie set up to make you feel like Freddy was the victim. He really didn't do these terrible things, and then
That's my point with the romanticizing, right? He's
yeah, I
not
mean, like
sympathetic.
they try to swerve you too much. And then, oh my God, this poor groundskeeper just got killed, because they just assumed it was him. And then by the end of it, you find out not only is this son of a bitch a child murderer, which is terrible enough, he was a pedophile on top. And even that couldn't swing it back the other way. And there were some great kills in this movie. I mean, it starts out, they come out the gate. I was sitting in the theater when the first kill happens and that guy slices his own damn throat. I'm like, holy shit. And it sets up the whole Tina swerve with the girl in the diner that you think is going to be the heroine. And then it moves on to Heather, which winds up being this weird goth chicks. But even then, there was some cool effects, and they done a handful of cool things, but they got too far away from the core mythology. And I will give them kudos for the mom kill at the end. It was a lot better than pulling the mannequin through the damn little small window that we got in Wes Craven's version. But they done a lot better job of that, and I wasn't expecting it. But that's where they go south on them. Like in Candyman, that's another one. That just came out in 2021. They went away from what made Candyman work. And because Candyman has the potential to be a terrifying, terrifying movie.
Yeah.
And instead, they made this more about social injustice. They tried to make it one of those pieces, a woken movie. And that's why I won't watch nothing else that Jordan Peele puts out. He tries to make these movies. I mean, he's made some rather controversial statements, anyways, about he wouldn't hire white actors, and I try to look beyond that. I mean, that's okay, well, but he tried to make this more of a social injustice movie, which don't get me wrong, Candyman was done terribly bad, and it was a social injustice. However, it didn't mean that years later everybody's got to be Candyman. You don't really have the real Candyman except for the last 37 seconds of the movie, like they did Luke Skywalker and Force Awakens, and the rest of the movie is just other people who's been done wrong, and come to find out there's been various Candymen through the years, and it's like, what are you doing? I mean, a guy that works for me, he's my yard foreman, and he's about my age, and he's a black guy, and even he was like, he told me before, he said, "Don't go watch that movie, Dave." He said, "You're not gonna like it." I said, "Why?" He said, "It ain't Candyman." And I just thought he was being a little, He said, "It ain't Candyman. I'm telling you, it's not Candyman." So, like a dummy, I do the video on demand because, hey, drop $19 at home, watch it. What have you lost? Even with a couple liquor drinks, this movie was hard to watch. It had zero rewatch factor, but they didn't respect the core mythology. But then you move on to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3D and the Texas Chainsaw remakes of 2013 and 2003. They respected what made Leatherface badass. The Friday the 13th reboot that we got in 2009. That is one of the better Jason movies out there. It is right here. But they respected the mythology. They didn't change what made Jason Jason. No, he wasn't a walking zombie like he's been in the last few movies, but
Right.
he's fairly impervious to pain. Superhuman strength of a psychopath. But he's fast in this one. He's smart in this one. Like, he sets up traps, which makes the whole, no matter how fast you run, he just shows up around a tree, and as your ass is done for. Made it make sense because he had little traps all through the damn woods. I get it. I liked it. I was a fan of that. I was a fan of the way they done Leatherface. And then, even though Amityville remake we were talking about earlier, they done great with that. They made Ryan Reynolds a believable, serious actor. That this is, but it come down to respect. Then you get Rob Zombie. I have more hope for Rob Zombie's Halloween 1 and 2 than anyone. I'm thinking this is a guy that, I mean, he watches the Universal Monster movies once a week. He's got a theater in his own home. He has friends come over and they sit down and watch, Universal Monster movies. That's pretty fucking cool.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, he's going to respect the mythology. And when the first movie, he delved a little too much into young Michael's backstory for my taste, and I know why he done it. He done it to give his wife a fucking acting job, which is what he does in every movie he makes. But it's an enjoyable movie. I can watch that one right now and still enjoy it. I didn't make it through maybe 40 minutes of Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, and I cut that shit off, and I've never attempted it again. Because he made Michael Myers become Jason Voorhees to give his damn wife another acting job. Because from beyond the grave, she's speaking to Michael with a white unicorn. And I was just like, I'm watching this. I'm like, are you kidding me? And she's like, oh, Michael, go get it. I'm like, no, this is Michael Myers. He's not fucking Jason Voorhees. He's not hired killing for mother. He's just a damn psycho. So, to me, that's what makes or breaks the reboot. How well do you respect the mythology? You can do some twists. You can do some tweaks. Don't change what the things that aren't broke. Don't try to fix.
Yeah, and I think that's the same of any reboot that you're going to do is, respect what came before. You can change a few things here and there to make it more meaningful for the time, but don't necessarily change the premise of what it is. But let me ask you this, because this is one of the questions I had, as far as your horror movies and stuff is, we're talking about rebooting and what we're trying to get into is, hey, respect the mythology, but what's the other mythologies out there right now that are left to delve into that we haven't been getting? We talked about the lack of horror movies before. We're still repeating the same ones over and over. What out there is left? What have we not delved into that we need to?
Well, there's a zombie on every channel at this point.
Yeah.
There's a new Evil Dead reboot coming up right now, and Sam Raimi's got his hands in it. But I mean, let's be honest, even with Sam Raimi having his hands in it, I mean, at what point is it going to be comedy? Is it going to be horror? So you just don't know. I was a big fan of when I heard they were trying to reboot the Universal Monsters into a shared universe.
Yeah, see, I'd like to see that.
But there was so much gray area in what they were trying, because we got that Dracula Untold movie, and that was actually a pretty good movie, and it set up a great sequel. I thought it was good, and it was and by the end of it, it's in modern time. So the Wolfman was supposed to be the next installment of that. And even though it was set in 1800s, you set up okay, we can move on with this. Then they come up with Tom Cruise's The Mummy. And that movie just nosedived.
I tried to watch that movie 3 times, and I didn't make it past 20 minutes in the movie any time before I fell asleep.
I toughed it out, but it was too Mission Impossible for me. I didn't care for it. It wasn't good. It felt like Mission Impossible mixed with Brandon Fraser's The Mummy.
Yeah, I can't really speak to what it felt like because I watched 20 minutes before I fell asleep 3 different times.
We missed nothing, and that was what the last nail in the coffin is. We were supposed to have got a Creature from the Black Lagoon, a new Frankenstein, and them done properly. All of these can be. If you want to see these properties done properly in a shared universe, go watch Penny Dreadful. It had 3 seasons on Showtime. Wonderful show. I can't speak highly enough of it. I mean, and you have Dracula in there. You have Frankenstein. You have a Wolfman. You have witches in there. You have, various other creatures and things. They do it justice. They treat them all with respect, and you see the true power in some of these characters.
Yeah, and I agree with you because that's a great show because I remember watching it. But But I guess my question also is too, is, we're still talking about the same ones being redone. At what point does somebody get creative and say, okay, and don't get me wrong, everything we do is usually a derivative or something else, but at some point, where do we dive in and say, okay, here's a new, let's just use, Baba Yaga as an example. That's supposed to be the boogeyman in a certain mythology. Why aren't we getting movies about something like that? We're not, and I don't mean the Asylum that's on Sci-Fi Channel movies. I mean actual movies. Why are we not delving into other properties that are out there that we don't really see very often?
We saw the peak of the horror slasher boom in the 80s. You had guys like John Carpenter, Wes Craven, and even the cat that Sean Cunningham. Why not? He was the brain behind the adult Jason. These guys like that, they're, I guess, I don't know if they're a dying breed or if studios just aren't backing the ones with the ideas anymore. And we'll never see another Jason movie because the rights are so muddled up at this point. I mean, and the court case is finally final, but the way it finalized, I mean, the screenwriter from the original play, he owns the rights within the United States to the mother slasher version of it. Sean Cunningham owns the rights to the adult, but he can't make a film without the approval of the other guy because it still plays off of that guy's screenplay.
Yeah.
And the other guy, if he made a movie, he couldn't release it outside of the United States. I mean, you'll never see another Friday the 13th. I think the studios are too scared to make another Freddy at this point. Michael's fighting strong, and I was kind of hoping that would be the point where maybe some of these guys would give the properties over to Blumhouse because Blumhouse seems to get it right. I mean, and they're the ones behind the Insidious movies. They're the ones behind the Conjuring movies that are making, bukus of money hand over fist. And even those, as popular as they are, you're only going to be able to come out with a couple more of those. I mean, at some point, people are going to be like, okay, we've seen enough of Ed and Lorraine Love, whatever, Warren, and, we're ready to move into something else. So, I mean.
I guess that's my point. We're going to continue to see a decline if we just keep rehashing the same stuff until somebody puts out something new. And I don't see anything new really coming.
The only thing I've seen new that kind of really piques my interest is the Black Phone. I don't know if you've seen the preview for that. And it's got Ethan Hawke in it, of all people. And he's the guy that you just think he's this creepy child killer. And he wears this like crazy mask and whatnot. But it's got a supernatural twist on it. Like the kids he's killed in this room are calling through this old black phone.
Yeah, I've seen that. I know what you're talking about now.
That actually looks pretty damn interesting. And that actually drops in February. That's some of the few things I've seen of what's coming up. The Terrifier, Art the Clown. Part 2 of that drops sometime this year. It's not specified when. They could do something with that right there, aside from the fact that his kills are so brutal, you can't play them on most channels. Yeah. I mean, there's a scene in the first movie, he ties a girl upside down naked and starts with a hacksaw and goes all the way down. If you've ever seen a deer quartered,
no,
it's the same thing. I've seen it.
I don't want to see that.
Yes, I mean it's a brutal movie, but I mean it actually was a fun, scary watch. It was like, holy cow! And there's a second part coming out this year.
Yeah, I saw that picture you sent me with that clown, you asshole.
Yeah, they do. I know you'd love that. If they're smart with these two, they can do something with that. They might can move into a franchise. A lot of the other things I've seen coming up for the next year is a lot of rehashing. Hellraiser has 2 different properties coming out. One's going to be on Hulu, which is a reboot movie with a female Pinhead.
It's not even so much of the gender swap for me. Again, it's just another reboot of a property we've already seen before. I'd rather hear something fresh. I mean, that's just my take, right? But
if you read the Hellbound Heart, I don't think it ever refers to Pinhead as a he or she. It just says the Hell Priest. So okay. I can give you a little bit of leeway on that right there. Even though I've read the books And beyond Hellbound Heart in Scarlet Gospel, he is referred to as he many times, even Pinhead a few times. So jury's out on that. There is a HBO Max series that is in development, and Clive Barker himself has got some kind of executive producer role in it. So I'm a little more in lead to put my stock in that one versus the Hulu one. Texas Chainsaw Massacre has got another reboot / sequel / whatever you want to call it on Netflix. It drops in February, and it does play off of the first movie, which that's what Texas Chainsaw 3D done in 2013. It was supposed to be a direct sequel to the first movie. So is this right here, and they bring back Sally Hardesty, the sole survivor of the first movie. So I don't know where it's going to go. Or I've not seen one picture of Leatherface online. They've dropped a couple trailers, but you still don't get to see Leatherface, which is kind of worrisome. Because anytime you don't tease the monster moving into it, leaves me to believe there's some problems. Halloween Ends comes out this year. Scream drops this week. Nightmare Alley's out now. That looks kind of, it's a little freaky looking. I'm not sure how well it actually be, but it's more of a mind game than an actual. I would like to see the return of a slasher myself. Like, why can we not create the new Jason Voorhees? I mean, and if you've watched the Hatchet movies, Kane Hodder, who was probably the most famous and synonymous name to be next to Jason Voorhees, he plays Victor Crowley. And hell, there's probably 6 of those. I think there's like three different Hatchet movies, and then like 2 or 3 different Victor Crowley movies. They're enjoyable little watches. They're fun. There's some brutal kills in them, but then again, it's kind of corny too in some spots.
Yeah.
Some of the kills are really like so brutal and getting corny at the same time. That's like, So I mean, he's the most, as far as a new slasher, that's the only one I've seen in the last 15 years.
Yeah. I just think we're running short on ideas, but we're actually running a little closer on time too. So if you're good, we'll go ahead and move out to our nerd out segment.
That was really all. I mean, sadly, the decline of horror has led to the decline of any valuable stock to continue on about.
Yeah. So with that, we'll move into our nerd out segment. So for anybody who's new to the show, this is the portion of the show where we ask each other random questions that we haven't shared with each other beforehand. So it puts us on the spot to answer. And yes, this week I did not send mine in the notes to Hassel, so he hasn't seen them.
Damn.
But we'll ask questions, and then we'll give our answers. But if you have something you want to contribute to that conversation, feel free to provide your answer to our questions in the comments section below. Or if you just want to expand on one of the ones we gave, feel free to throw that in there as well. So
yeah, because I'm sure for some of the shit that I shit all over you, there's a fan out there somewhere. So feel free to bitch on us here on YouTube or Twitter or Instagram, any of the places.
Yeah. Hassel, this is your arena of expertise, so I'm going to let you go first this week.
All right. I've got a good one this week. What Halloween tradition is either one, overhyped, or just a flat-out villain?
I'm not sure if I understand the question fully. So are you asking like...
I don't know what you would consider Halloween traditions. What do you figure is like, one is either overhyped or I hate it so much it's the villain of Halloween?
Okay, I got you. Man, that's interesting. I am not a huge fan of the whole, and I'm going to get a lot of flack for this, but the whole dressing up just because it's Halloween. I'm fine if you want to have a costume party and do costumes and stuff, but just to do it just because it's that one time of year, it's like, why can't I have a costume party in the middle of July if I wanted to?
I would be down for one once a month. I'm just saying.
Yeah, that's probably, and truthfully, the costumes that you can easily get a hold of are not. They put effort into some, but cosplayers that go to the conventions and stuff that we see put so much more effort into a costume, and I want one like that. I don't want to go buy one for Spirit Halloween. I want the dude that built the Iron Man actual armor with a faceplate moving up and down, and he made it from scratch. I want that.
I literally have a $400 Leatherface mask in my closet that I get to wear once a year. to terrify children with.
And see, that's my point. Why is it only once a year?
And
Why would we do it?
COVID has kept me from doing that the last 2 years.
So I guess that would be my answer. I mean, just the fact that you don't do costumes more often. Why is that? And I'm not saying I'm opposed to dressing up, because I'm fine with that, But it's why are we doing it just because it's Halloween? And
Also,
then,
you're in an area where there's enough conventions. You should be dressing up more regularly. I'm just saying.
I am not capable of creatively capable of building my own outfit. So yeah, that's probably not going to happen.
Well, that's when you reach into G Money Entertainment's deep pockets and you outsource that booger.
Yeah, if I could find somebody who did it, I might would get at least one, and I would probably wear that same one for like 2 years, and I'd be like, all right, now I need a new one. But what's your answer to that question? What is the one Halloween
I got a
tradition?
triple threat as my answer because they're all three equally villainous enough to me. One, Charlie Brown and the Great Pumpkin.
Oh, I like that one.
Most people view this as a tradition that I just think is terrible. Two, all basic white girls, and it starts in September, and it goes on, is pumpkin spice. That is a true villain. Villainy oozes out of this shit.
I hate anything that tastes like pumpkin. I don't even like pumpkin pie, man. I just don't like that stuff. The flavor is not there for me.
I even enjoy the smell of it.
I don't like
However, the flavor of pumpkin spice is utter trash. And the basic white girls that follow with their Ugg boots and their bullshit just makes me vomit. But last, and certainly, oh God, not least, Hocus Pocus.
You're getting a second one.
I mean, I rest my case.
That was harsh. You're getting a second one, and it's coming soon.
Unfortunately, my daughter's going to probably make me watch it.
She is, because she liked the first one.
She's basic white girl. She loves her pumpkin spice and her Hocus Pocus. So, yeah.
Too bad for you.
Yeah, tell me about it.
So I've got one for you this week. And I thought about a couple of different things, but this is the one I ended up with. What new, and I brought this up a few times, but what new mythology or monster or trope would you like to see become, a new franchise out there?
To me, I would like to see the Wolfman. Just because it's been proven you can do something like, well, I mean, those, what were the Underworld movies? The way they done the Lycans in those, they wound up being the characters you got behind and liked the most. Yeah. The old show on Fox back in the late 80s that Rick Baker done the effects for, just Werewolf. It had one season, but the story was great. This kid gets bit by a werewolf, accidentally. He winds up being one of his friends. He kills him. So then he goes on the run, basically, because the bounty hunter's after him the whole time because he's turning into a werewolf. Occasionally he's murdering the hell out of people, but he does try to use it a little more for good. And the whole time there's this really old werewolf, which is actually Chuck Connor of old, and he's got like one eye and he's like a silver werewolf, where he's old and he's just pure evil. Something to that effect right there. I mean, I'd love to see a movie based upon, and you could create a franchise out of that.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
I could get behind that. I mean, I think we've done too much with vampires at this point to where it's hard to really put stock into them in a fearful manner.
Yeah, that's fair.
And Morbius is fit to shit the bed probably to the point to where
we'll find out really January 2023.
Well, what do you got, Monster?
You know what? I thought about this for a while, and this is, I guess, where I came with the question altogether. Is I'd like to see them. You've got all this stuff now. You've got smart cars, smart houses, smart watches. Let's do an artificial intelligence, and not a sci-fi version like a Terminator, right? Not action. Let's say this is artificial intelligence horror where maybe this whole town or this subdivision is built with all these smart houses and smart cars and stuff in them. The AI gains sentience, and it's not maliciously necessarily killing people, but it treats all the things that are part of its AI system, all the houses, all the different cars and stuff, as its own body. So like when we get sick and our body antibodies start trying to fight off viruses and stuff, it's killing the people in the town and the subdivision or whatever because they are the virus in its body.
Kind of Ultron it.
Yeah, I'd like to see something like that, and then you can get to the end of it in this subdivision. It's like, okay, maybe a handful of people have survived or whatever. Then you realize this is a worldwide, global, artificial company, and you start seeing this everywhere.
What's scary is that could possibly become true.
I know.
We have scientists that are more and more dealing with AI and whatnot. And I've read a few articles lately, and it's like, you read it and it's like, am I reading the fucking Onion here? And you looking, it's a reputable site where they've done something with AI and it didn't go the way because
exactly.
You keep seeing they create these robots that are supposed to be more and more, they're learning and whatnot. They got the little human face and whatnot. And like somewhere, like I said, there's one like started becoming like aggressive towards certain people. Like, but I mean, it's like from its own, it's a program flaw. It's like where it's not operating outside its program parameters. It's viewing certain things, and that's where what you're talking about would be the case. Where at what point are we the vermin that's keeping their perfect world from being right?
Exactly, and like in this case, what I'm talking about, like if it's a subdivision, just for instance, and you have 30 houses there, think of the kills you could have in that too. When it decides, hey, you're a virus, I need to remove you. Oh, so when you get sick, you get a fever, right? That starts burning out some of the virus. Your house decides to blow the gas line to the stove and then set the stove up.
Well, I see it starting out with like killing small rats, and the next thing you know, neighbor's beagle, because it views it as a bigger vermin.
Or getting your smart car and let it start. It's supposed to have the automatic parking or whatever, and it just starts driving you off a cliff or something.
Well, you were in a smart car to begin with, so you know what? You almost asked for
it. But I think you could make some time out of that, and to me, it becomes scary as you think about it, because it's like, how much of this could possibly actually happen at this point?
We're slowly morphing more and more into the realm of that being very true and possible. So you know what? I'd put some money into that right there. I'd probably go sit down and watch that.
And, I think of it like a Skynet, but without necessarily the Terminator and the war and stuff. But it's a Skynet's taking you out without ever having to build its own robots.
Yeah, that's the thing. Well, if this does ever transpire, so to speak, I don't think that it's ever going to build replicate robots to be out there gunning us down and true a la the Terminator fashion. It's going to be more of whatever you're doing is something flawed within their parameters, and they're just trying to rid you out of it to right their wrongs.
Yeah, same thing we do when you get roaches and pests and stuff in the house.
You stomp the hell out of them.
But with that, I think that brings us to a close for today. But before we leave, Hassel, tell the audience where they can find us on social media.
You can go to Twitter. We are at MR Show. You can go to Instagram, and we are the Nerdy Manroom Show. And you can also always comment in the comments down below.
And remember, check out our sponsor, The Zone Collectibles, for all your nerdy needs. You can find them on the internet at thezonecollectibles@gmail.com, or on Facebook at The Zone Collectibles, or in their store in Tifton, Georgia. We are going to have Kevin from Zone Collectibles on here with us next week, I believe, and we're going to talk about a few what-if scenarios, very similar to the Marvel comic and the TV show. What if this happened? How would things have turned out? So be on the lookout for that, and I think we'll possibly have some more news either next week or shortly after that you want to be on the lookout for upcoming giveaways and stuff that the Zone Collectibles is sponsoring for us. And remember, if you enjoyed this video or any of our other content, give us a like, subscribe, comment, or share, and join us next time as we talk the possibilities of what if. Until then, live nerdy and enjoy your frights.